This is Drop Your Buffs, a podcast discussing Survivor. Well, welcome to episode 25. My name's Stuart, and with me, as usual, is my friend Craig.
G'day, Stu. How you going? We're up to episode 25.
25, it is 25, but it's been a long time between drinks.
It has been.
Because some of you may not realise that we really started this podcast as a podcast for Australian Survivor when they kicked off their season 3 last year, which really was the first proper season of Australian Survivor, I think.
Certainly the best one we've had so far.
That's right, and and we had a ball doing it. But after that season, I don't know about you, Craig, but I was just stuffed.
Yeah, it was a big. Well, it was, what was it? 55 days that thing went on for, and it was on 3 nights a week, and which was great. I mean, too much Survivor is never enough. But gosh, it was an exhausting.
It was grueling,
run, wasn't it?
It was grueling, and then towards the end of that season, that's when they started the US season of Millennials versus Gen X, which I didn't even bother looking at the time because I was too wrapped up in the Australian Survivor. And then even once Australian Survivor finished, I still sort of left it on the.
By that stage, we were into Christmas, weren't we? And there were Christmas parties and Christmas shopping to do, and I think that's around the time that was all on. So yeah, it was a very exhausting end of the year for Survivor fans. There was a lot of Survivor on Australian TV. No,
but I did eventually get back to that last season, and it was an excellent season. I have to say there was lots of twists and turns, and it was a great season. It was a great season all around.
Yeah, it was a cracker. I reckon we've got a good one ahead here too. Season 34.
Well, season 34, Game Changers. Now, we hadn't really decided to do a podcast about the US Survivor, but I think one of the main reasons that got me interested was the fact that it was an all returning cast of castaways, and that's always so much more fun.
That's always great. This one has got some of my all-time favourite survivors in it, so that for me is very exciting. Game changers. These are all people who have done something or in some way have been, they've been major. They've done big moves and really shaken up the game. So I think this is going to be fantastic. I am so excited.
Well, with this episode, what we're going to talk about is we'll just talk about the season in general, what we know so far. And then we're going to discuss the castaways. So this is like a bit of a preview episode. We'll do it in 2 parts. So we'll have the first part. We're going to talk about 10 of the castaways, and then we'll finish up with the final 10 in part 2.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, just before we do, I'd like to introduce that for this season we're going to have a new segment, Survivor Fantasy League. So what do you think, Craig? A bit too much?
No, I'm very excited about the Survivor Fantasy League.
Now, what we thought that we'd run is, if you haven't heard of it, we're doing a Survivor Fantasy League where we can choose. We have draft picks of the various castaways, so we assemble our own fantasy team of survivors. And then as the season goes, all of those survivors earn points for various things, like if they find an idol or if they win a challenge and various things like that. And so it's just a bit of fun. It's just something that we can do to sort of track through the season. And we also have some special guests to join us on that as well, which we'll talk more about in the upcoming episode.
Yeah, fantastic. No, I think it's going to be good fun. It'll be interesting to see what we get points for.
Yes, that's right. Okay, some general comments about the season. What do you reckon, Craig?
Well, as I said, I'm pretty excited about this one. So this is season 34. It's Survivor Game Changers. We talked about that before. It was filmed, I believe it was filmed middle of last year. It was back-to-back immediately after the Gen X Millennials season, I believe.
It's about 9 months ago.
So it's quite a while since they put this one in the can. As we've got 20 castaways divided into 2 tribes. The first 2 tribes are Nuku, which is blue, and Mana, which is red. Yep. And they're apparently islands of Fiji.
Right.
It was filmed in the Mamamuka Islands of Fiji. And little fun fact, the first episode of this season is the 500th episode of Survivor.
Yes, that's amazing.
That is amazing. When you translate that into the number of tribal council, that means Jeff must have been to about 500 tribal councils by now. It's probably not quite 500.
No,
there's been a couple of episodes where, for whatever reason, there wasn't a tribal council, but 500 episodes
it's
of Survivor.
It's a fantastic
what is it, 15,
body of
16,
work.
17 years? It's quite amazing.
But there's been some episodes where there's been 2 tribal councils, haven't there?
Well. So maybe it comes out to about 500.
It could be. I wonder if they'll do anything a bit different on that episode, or if
I hope so.
Or maybe they'll have some kind of a special challenge or something like that sort of harks back to
maybe a challenge that's got all 500
seasons
previous challenges or something, and see how they go with that.
No, maybe it'll be a puzzle or something, and when you make it, it has a big picture that says 500 or something like that.
Maybe.
Could be.
Well, that's good speculation.
Could be. This is the 4th season to feature entirely returning players. So beforehand, we've had Survivor All Stars, Heroes versus Villains, and Cambodia.
That's right.
This is number 4, and there's been other seasons where they've had a few returning castaways, but not
the entire
the whole
entire
cast
has played before. Yeah. And as we go through, we'll talk about some of the people who are back for multiple times.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
There's some very experienced Survivor royalty playing this series. That is for sure. Yeah.
Have you heard about the change to the voting rules that Jeff has been talking about?
Yeah, just explain it for everybody. What's happening there?
Well, I think I've got this right. This is what happens what used to happen with a tied vote is that they have a revote, but without the people who were tied. And if that doesn't resolve the tie, then they try and have a big group discussion and have a unanimous decision. If that doesn't work, then they draw rocks.
Yeah.
So they're pulling out the revote section, which at first I thought, well...
So straight to the unanimous discussion.
That's right.
Right.
Which originally I thought that was great from a TV point of view, because the revote normally didn't really prove anything. It was you would normally get the same result again.
Yeah, there's been a couple of occasions where I think the votes did change, but generally, yeah, you find people vote the way they always intended to, and yeah, you end up back where you were anyway.
Exactly, and it's more fun seeing them have a big discussion about who's going to.
Well, it happened in the last series of Australian Survivor. And do you remember? I was around halfway through the season. I can't remember what happened exactly there, but I think in the end, wasn't that the one where there was a tribe swapping thing that went on, and Connor had to go across to the other tribe or something?
That sounds familiar.
That. But no one. I don't think anyone changed their vote on the revote. It went to the unanimous. It was all getting a bit acrimonious, and he almost volunteered. I'll go. Didn't quite get to rocks, but there was a rock drawing in Gen X and Millennials, wasn't there?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Well, what I didn't realise, and what Jeff was saying, that the real reason for removing that revote part of it wasn't so much for just to speed things up a bit, but it was because they only just realised that for a few seasons now, it's being used as a bit of a strategy where you've got a big alliance that has enough people in it that they can afford to split votes, and they split votes in case someone's got an idol.
Flush out some idols, yeah.
And so it's like a free way of being able to flush out an idol, and then you have the chance to revote to the person who didn't have the idol, and therefore still get the result that you want. And so it was like a bit of a cheat, really, and it was being exploited.
Yeah, a little loophole in the rules. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, whether it even comes into effect, because we don't see that every series.
No.
When it gets to that point. I mean, there haven't been that many rock drawing incidents that I can remember.
No,
34
that's right.
seasons, so perhaps they want more of that. That's good TV. Rock drawing, gosh.
It is. It is.
Right.
Well, should we get on to the survivors?
Let's go through them.
Okay.
So no particular order. In fact, I think we're probably in alphabetical order by first name here, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that's the way it's fallen.
Yep. So we're the first 10 today?
Yes, we start with Andrea.
Andrea, yeah.
She's been on Survivor twice before, Redemption Island, where she finished 5th.
37 days played. She played with some big names on that series too.
Who was on that one?
Well, Boston Rob ultimately won that one. Philip Shepherd, who couldn't say Francesca, who was also there. Russell Hance played that series as well. So that was a big first season for her to be playing in.
And then she was on season 26, Caramone, where she finished 7th. So she's done reasonably well. She's made the jury each time she's played.
Well, I mean, 37 days on Redemption Island, 33 on Survivor Caramone. So 70 days played all up.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Survivor experience. She was certainly on Caramone. She was targeted quite immediately, very early in the game because of the aggressive way she played that. She was playing
She was a pretty tough player,
Yeah,
really.
absolutely. And she was ultimately blindsided because of the danger her gameplay was presenting. But do you remember one of her famous moments? Do you remember that standoff she had with Malcolm in Caramone to stop him finding an idol?
No, what was that? What was that one?
Remember he'd been given a clue at a challenge or something like that, and so he went off into the jungle to try and find this idol. She got wind of what was happening, and she literally followed him. And this standoff ensued where he wouldn't search and she wouldn't go. And
that's right.
They were there for a couple of hours. It was really quite comical. But the other thing she did on Caramone, she was part of that Stealth R Us alliance.
That's right.
Philip Shepherd, which they restored from the previous season when she'd played with Philip. And another thing, she was on the beach when Brandon went berserk in that particular.
Oh, that was that season.
That was that season, yeah. And she was one of the ones most affected by his departure from the game.
Right.
So she's got some good survivor experience, Andrea. She's certainly proven herself to be a strong player. She was the first woman ever to return from Redemption Island, and she's previously said that her favourite contestant of all time was JT, who's playing this season.
Right,
and she's been voted off with an immunity idol in her possession.
Never a good thing.
So never a good thing. So look, she knows what it's like to go deep into the game. So she'll be a strong player.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the next person we've got is Aubrey. She's a very different player, and she's a more recent player, so she's probably more fresh in people's minds. But she was just in season 32, K Wrong.
Yes, she was. She was on the Brains tribe, and that was Brains Brawn and Beauty, I think, was that one.
That's right.
And she was on the Brains tribe and seemed a bit vulnerable from the start. You might remember she had a panic attack fairly early in the game.
She did. She was very similar to Christy in the Australian Survivor.
Exactly,
very similar.
Yeah. But despite that, she made it all the way to the final tribal council. She got through all 39 days. Lost to Michelle in a 5-2 vote there on the basis that the jury considered her social game wasn't as good as Michelle's in that series.
I think she played a strong social and
she did.
strategic game, and she's a very likable sort of a person. So I think she was unlucky in the season she was in because she lost 2 close allies to medical evacs. So that's bad luck.
Yeah, Neil and was Joe, wasn't it?
Joe.
Was it Joe? Oh, no, Neil did. I remember Neil.
It was Neil. Yeah, that's right.
But then she found a way. She aligned with Sydney, and they were pretty much the dominant alliance of that season. And Ty, who's playing this season as well, ended up working with her. He was a bit more erratic, but he worked with her along the way as well. So, she knows what it's like to go all the way to the end. And Debbie also. Debbie, who's playing. We'll talk about Debbie in a minute. Debbie is also playing this season. So she's got a few people she knows well from her previous season.
Now, from someone on the opposite end of the spectrum, I guess, Brad Culpepper, and I thought it was funny. My main memory of him was Jeff Probst always calling out Culpepper, Culpepper wins, and things like that.
Yeah, well, he was in. I don't really know what to say about Brad Culpepper. He was quite erratic. He played a very confrontational sort of game. He was always, making some pretty outlandish statements at tribal council.
He didn't seem to be a well-liked survivor, is my estimation.
I think that's right, and that's why he came 15th out of 20 in Blood versus Water after 14 days in.
He was playing with his wife in that season, wasn't he?
He was, exactly. And, he angered a lot of people. He didn't necessarily go along with the way the people thought the votes were going to go, and I think people just saw him as just dangerous because they didn't know how he was going to react. But anyway, he's back. He's obviously been seen as someone who definitely does change things up. He definitely did that. He's on Nuku tribe.
Well, actually, he was a former NFL player as well. Yeah. So he's a definite challenger.
Perhaps in Australia we don't know him so well, but I suspect he's probably quite well known in the US from his NFL days. I don't know, but look, I think we can expect some fun and games from Brad.
Well, some of the castaways did pick up on who he was actually. So I think that some people didn't know, but some thought. Yeah, right. I think that's Culpepper.
Yeah. Well, I don't follow NFL at all. I wouldn't have a clue. But I think he's a reasonably well known name in US sport. Yep. Good luck, Brad. Well, it's gonna be fun watching.
Number 4,
Caleb. Caleb's on Mana tribe, the Red tribe. Now Caleb had a bit of bad luck, I think, really, in
absolutely
Rang. people might remember that epic challenge. It was a very hot day. They were digging in sand for quite a long time. And, at the end of the challenge, quite a few of them went down, but he was the one who went down the most.
Yeah.
And ultimately was medevaced out.
Well, they had 3 people down.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I think that we've seen the camera crew on screen. Everyone sort of dropped what they were doing and helped. It was amazing.
Quite hard to watch that whole scene.
It was.
He spent 5 days in intensive care after his evacuation.
Really?
They brought him back to Ponderosa, where all the ousted survivors go after they've been voted out. But because it was still really hot and because he'd been really ill, they actually flew him back to the US early. He had no memory of the whole evacuation and saw it for the first time when it was broadcast.
Wow.
Apparently. But look, he up to that point, I think he was well liked. He was very fit.
Oh, he was. He was definitely.
Yeah, he was very strong in challenges. He formed an unlikely alliance with Ty.
Exactly.
Which was very unlikely, but they got on like a house on fire, and apparently Ty attended his wedding last year. So I think he's probably feels like he's got a bit to prove after he was taken out a little bit early through no fault of his own. He lasted 9 days, but he's never attended tribal council.
Really? Yeah.
Apparently.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, now we've got the first of the 2 Sierras, and that'll make it complicated.
Why not? Sierra with a C, this one.
Yeah, Sierra with a C. Now,
she's on Mana tribe.
Now, she was also in Blood versus Water. She was playing with her mother,
who she voted out.
Exactly. Exactly.
So there's someone who's prepared to switch the game up a bit. If you're prepared to vote out your own mother,
that's a tough player.
I reckon. She made it to the final 5, and again she was voted out because people saw her as a threat. That was Survivor Blood versus Water.
And then she was on season 31, Second Chance, where she finished 10th. So she made the jury again.
Yep.
And she caused the second rock drawing in Survivor history.
She did.
So that's something that we just said before. It doesn't happen very often, but she was involved with one of them.
Well, she's a fighter, Sierra, because after the merge in that season, she was very much on the bottom of the alliances. And she ultimately managed to break up the majority alliance, organised a couple of blindsides, and ultimately got taken out because she was seen as too much of a threat. But 63 days of Survivor play, she knows what she's doing. And
I think that...
a little bit older now too.
Yeah, well, I think that you can see just from just the 5 people that we've spoken about so far why they're all game changers.
Absolutely.
Because they are all people that don't just sit by and let things happen. They all try and make moves all the time. So,
I mean, voting out your own mother, I think she formed the view that their game, because they were thinking about it as the 2 of them, their game was better served without her mother in the game. So she voted her out. Was it?
I think it was because she thought that they were more of a target because people would see them as like a voting block, or
I think that was it. And I think her mother had said a couple of things which was not endearing herself to others in the tribe, and I think Sierra with a C was not particularly comfortable about that. So I can't wait to see what she does in this one.
Now the next person is Sari.
Yeah.
Now She's played 3 seasons before. Three seasons.
She's got 85 days of Survivor coming into this series.
That's incredible.
So by coming back for a 4th time, it makes her the first and only woman to play Survivor 4 times.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and what makes it even more amazing is that Jeff Probst calls her the woman who got up off the couch and played Survivor.
Well, I think she said that herself, didn't she? At one point, was that something she actually said?
It probably was, but I mean,
I can't remember.
I know that she described herself as a couch potato, and she hates camping, being outside, all those sorts of things. Yeah. And so for someone to do so well, but the reason why is because she had always had such a strong social game.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly right.
And that was her big strength. Yeah,
she was very sociable. She was very resilient. She did play a great social game in all 3 series she's been in. Yeah, she's right up there with it. She's a Survivor legend. There's no question about that.
Oh yeah,
she's the only person to make it into the final 4 twice, but not reach the final tribal council. She's never won it.
The final 4 twice, because I thought in Heroes versus Villains she finished 17th, is what I had.
Yes, what I said. She made it to the final 4 twice.
Okay, twice. Yeah.
So the first 2 seasons she made it to the final 4, but didn't reach the final tribal council.
No.
So she'll be looking to get there. Yeah, she did finish 17th in Heroes versus Villains. She was involved all the way back. So she started season 12 in Panama, where she came 4th. She was involved in a fire-breaking tiebreaker. That one. A fire-making tiebreaker. I mean, and then in Micronesia, she came 4th, and she played with Aussie. in that one. So again, she's playing with some people she knows.
Well, the next person that you mentioned before, Craig, Debbie.
Yes.
Now, she's also a fairly recent player because she was just in season 32 K-Wrong, and she finished 9th, so she got onto the jury for that one.
She did, 24 days in.
She was probably a bit of a polarizing character in lots of ways. I mean, she was a really sort of an odd person, and she was like some of those other characters we've had before, like Philip and Coach and so on.
Yeah. I can remember her introduction in the very first episode where she rambled off a list of jobs that she'd done. And what I didn't know, and you might have realised this, but I didn't know this until just recently. You know how they always subtitle their confessionals with their occupation?
Yeah.
It was a running joke throughout that season that the occupation kept changing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't realise that. So,
I saw that at the time because
did you?
because
I only found out just recently. So apparently along the way they had chemist, civil air patrol captain, electronics expert, all this stuff. I had no idea this was going on.
And waitress and part-time model.
Oh, really? Really? Are they actual jobs she's done?
Well, I don't know exactly, or maybe she had done those jobs, but maybe not for very long. I'm not sure, but you know, she. I mean. Something that she also said, I have military training in summer and winter survival, shelter building, fire making, food procurement, torture training, and a superior will to survive. Plus, I'm fun too. I'm a card-carrying member of the Reading Jugglers Club, so I'll teach them how to juggle.
Okay.
So it was very hard to know how to take Debbie.
She came ninth. So she
that's right.
She made the merge.
That's right.
Yeah. Apparently she was on Bold and the Beautiful last year. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's been more than one survivor on
Malcolm. We'll talk about
that's
Malcolm
right.
in a few days' time. But Malcolm was on Bold and the Beautiful in a recurring role, I think. Well, good luck, Debbie. Debbie is entertaining TV. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly. Next one, Hallie Ford. Now, she was in Worlds Apart. Now, that was the season where they had the blue-collar tribe, the white-collar tribe, and the no-collar tribe.
That's right, yes.
And she was on the no-collar tribe, which I guess they were more like the sort of free and easy type sort of younger sort of tribe that they weren't tied down to anything in particular.
She had a really strong alliance in that series with Joe, another one of the Survivor greats.
Joey Amazing.
He was Joey Amazing. And I think he was on No Collar Tribe to start with. I think that's probably how that came about. But they had a very strong alliance throughout that series until she came 11th, 22 days in on that one.
No, well, you know, and just to show her sort of range of background, she was a law student that was also into surfing, jiu-jitsu, and motorcycles. So it really covers quite a few different things there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Now, JT
is one of my favourite survivors of all time. Can I just say?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that you aren't alone in that, Craig.
A former winner.
That's right. He's been on twice before. Token Cheens is the winner, and Heroes versus Villains, where he made the jury.
He did, yep. Yeah, he had Token Teens, he won and did not have a vote cast against him in that entire series.
Yep. And
then received all of the jury votes to win unanimously. He got there on, very much assisted by a rock-solid alliance with Stephen Fishbach, which formed very, very early in the season. And it might have even been the first day or two that happened, and he ultimately took him to the final two. But they were. I
think it was the first day. It was like the first day, or maybe day two alliance, and it just lasted the whole season.
It was certainly from the very start. It was unbreakable, and he ultimately took him to the final two. So he lasted the full 39 days there. So it was an amazing performance in Survivor Token Teens.
What's what they call the perfect game? Did you read about that? Saying that I think there's only one other person that has done that. Is that right?
Who's that?
I'm
not sure who that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure who. Yeah, but to play that perfect game where you don't get any votes against you, and then you get all the votes in the final tribal. I
know it's pretty amazing.
It's amazing.
He then returned for Heroes versus Villains, and he was on the Heroes tribe for that one. Didn't do as well
No,
time.
no.
But he was up against people like Parvati and Russell Hance, who are as ruthless as they come.
That's right.
When it comes to Survivor. And it was ultimately them who actually blindsided him to get rid of him when he gave his idol to Parvati and Russell Hance, who later blindsided him. He played with Sandra as well, who's back in this series, who went on to win. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully he'll learn from that, from that last experience in Heroes versus Villains. But I mean, he sort of had that Southern charm sort of thing going, and so I think he was well liked.
Yep.
And and that goes very far. And he would do anything to win as well when it came to challenges. Because wasn't there one challenge where he broke a tooth or something?
He did. Yeah, was that him? Was it? Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So he holds quite an interesting Survivor record. He's got the record of 24 straight tribal councils while he was in the game without a single vote being recorded against him, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
So good luck, JT. So he's on Nuku, the Blue Tribe.
Now the last person for this part one of our preview is Jeff Varner. Now Jeff he's been on twice before, but there was 29 seasons apart, weren't they?
He played in the season 2, which was filmed in North Queensland in Australia, and made it all the way through to day 21. But that was in a different era. I mean, in terms of Survivor, the way the game has evolved since then. And I think when he came back on Survivor Cambodia, as you say, 29 seasons later, it was a challenge for him because things had moved on so much, and the way you play the game now is very different to how he played it when people were still finding their way back then. He had to play a far more aggressive game than he had in Australia.
I got the impression that people perhaps didn't trust him as much because he seemed like a bit of a, I don't know, like he just seemed to sort of change alliances quickly and easily, and he was sort of hard to depend on. So I don't know how he'll go on this one, but
so he's played twice and he's never made the jury. So might be third time lucky for Jeff.
Well, I guess out of those first 10 that we've looked at, he's probably the weakest character in that sense, isn't he? The weakest castaway in terms of previous results. I would say because he hasn't made the jury.
Well, he hasn't made the jury, but then neither was Caleb. I mean, Caleb made it to day 9 and got medevaced, so Caleb doesn't have a lot of gameplay in Survivor either. So I think that's perhaps a little harsh to you. but you're right. I see what you're saying. He hasn't gone really deep into the game.
No.
And he's back for his third time. So he'll be looking to do a bit better than he did on his last 2.
Sure, he will. Yeah. Well, that's part 1 of our preview podcast.
Wow, that went quick.
Sure did. We'll be back soon to talk about the final 10, and then we're only days away from the first episode.
Absolutely.
It's going to be great.
See you next time.
See you then.